Welcome to Top of the Pods, where we're all preparing for the summer movie season, which is kind of into its first month now. And of course, this is when the biggest blockbusters come out every year. It's been true for a long damn time, probably up to over 50 years now. But we're not going back 50 years. We're going back just 25 years to 1998. We're going to look at the top 10 grossing films of the summer of 1998 and see if how much they made actually reflects how good they are, and actually just put them in our own order. What order should they have been in as far as quality goes? Guys, first of all, how did you find, in general, the films of 1998, all 10 of them? Good, bad? Was it a chore to get through them? What do you think?
Not too bad. I mean, like, there's one or two of them that are obviously iffy, but like overall, it wasn't torture.
Yeah, it wasn't as it didn't seem like it's the biggest chore as like the 1971 ones we did, or any other ones. Like, these were like,
yeah,
they didn't take a lot of thought. Some of them there wasn't a lot of thought going into watching them.
Yeah, it should be said. I mean, we are looking at summer blockbusters. It's kind of a lot of time. It's turn off your brain, enjoy.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed most of them, except for a few, and I'm very interested to see whether we agree on which ones we actually did not enjoy. But we're going to start at the bottom of the list. The 10th highest grossing film in the summer of 1998 domestically was The Mask of Zorro. Jer, what were your own thoughts on The Mask of Zorro?
I enjoyed it. I think I'm pretty sure I saw this in the cinema when it came out. That was a busy year. I was working that summer just after I think the year before my junior leaving cert, maybe. So I was working in a petrol station, so I had money. I could do stuff on the weekends, and I think we went to the cinema pretty much 2 or 3 times every weekend that summer. So this list was basically my adolescent growing up. So yeah, definitely think I saw this one in the cinema. Enjoyed it. Probably not as much as I would have back then. Pure swashbuckling movie, you know. Love, but Antonio Banderas, like after Desperado, you know, this was one of his big, you know, standout performances that made him probably a household name, because obviously Desperado wouldn't have been everybody's cup of tea, but this was like everybody was falling in love with Antonio Banderas after this movie. So yeah, a good show. I know he did a lot of his own stunts on it, so that probably helped as well. You know, he trained with the Spanish fencing Olympic team for 4 months prior to making the movie, so you could tell like he, you know, had that Errol Flynn thing about him. I think actually Errol Flynn's instructor was actually behind the scenes in this as well with him, like during the shoot, you know, doing some whatever.
You mean it wasn't Anthony Hopkins?
Maybe it was. Maybe he was trained as well. He trained as well.
That should come with a spoiler warning.
Yeah, good show. Overall, it's, you know, middle of the road for me. I'll tell you exactly where it comes on my list. I have it at number 5, actually. Yeah, so middle of the road. Nothing spectacular, but not bad either. Like, it's, you know, it's perfect Sunday afternoon movie. If you didn't want to do anything, you'd throw it on. It's a bit of fun.
Fair enough. Liz, where did you land on The Mask of Zorro?
Not 5. Do you know what? Now, for this list, I had seen 2 of the movies, which is mad. So for me, they were all new. So of course, I was like, woohoo! It was no chore for me because I wanted to watch them all. I had seen Mask of Zorro previously, and I actually listed it at number 9. I know. What's that about? Like, you know, I've not a romantic bone in my body. I do, but it's grand. You know what I mean? Like, you could sit and watch it. You know, it's just one of those. But I just, between Antonio Banderas' accent, Anthony Hopkins' accent, Catherine Zeta-Jones's, it was just, do you know, at times it was difficult to listen to, right? I can't explain that any better. It was, at times it was just difficult to listen to, and it was fine. It didn't move me. I don't know how to explain that any better. I know I'd seen it before, but I don't really know what I was expecting from a second time round. It was grand, but I found it hard to listen to second time round. I think in 1998, how old was I then? Younger. It was easier to listen to and watch, I suppose, because of the whole, like, you know, all the love story, 2 different love stories going on. And also, of course, there's always a jealous person in there as well. But I was just, you know, but I did enjoy, like, the bandit's head in the pickle jar kind of a thing, and taking the drink out of it. Like, anything that makes me react to something that makes me go, you know, great altogether. So, but yeah,
that was based on actual fact as well.
Yeah, apparently so.
I don't know. Should I weigh in here and totally fuck up the ranking straight away, or should I let it still? Okay.
Oh,
I gotta say, man, if you could see my heart, there'd be a Z all over it. Like, oh, like I was 6 in 1998, man. So I saw The Mask of Zorro when I was pretty young, and it really left an impact on me. I love this movie. Like, I think it's actually like, I think you can trace the roots of this to almost like actually it's a lot of modern superhero films. Obviously, Batman and Zorro have a massive connection historically. Um, Also, it was funny because I was writing, I was like, man, the people who made Pirates of the Caribbean really owe Zorro lunch money, like, because they totally ripped it off. And then I was like, looking at the writers, I was like, oh, they also went on to make Pirates of the Caribbean, and I also love those movies. So I don't know what that says about me. I don't know. I just really, I think like I love a good swashbuckle, if that's the word that we're going to use, and that's actually what I did write in my notes. So I am going to use it. A good swashbuckle, which is just sounds like a nonsense word when you say it the first time, and more nonsense the more you repeat it. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they got the very Latino, Anthony Hopkins. It was by the way, it was nearly Sean Connery, which would have been fucking the only way this movie could have gotten better. Could you imagine? Like,
Scottish. It doesn't matter.
Amazing. It doesn't matter. He's fine. I don't know. I just love the action in it. I would say it's a bit slower and longer than I remember. But I like kind of the set pieces. I love like minor things in it as well. Like there's some stuff that's really cheesy that I love as well. Like there's like a lot of times when there's an explosion, you hear a lion roar for no apparent reason. It's really cheesy. I like that. That's sort of stuff we just don't get. It kind of, I don't know. It feels like maybe it's just because it felt like kind of blockbuster that we don't really get anymore. Like so many of them feel kind of soulless, and it feels like this one had like moments in it that we don't get in big films like this anymore. Like the scene with Anthony Hopkins and Catherine Zeta-Jones and the Sable, it's very slow and very emotional. It just slows the film down coming into a finale, and you're like, that's a great scene. I'm talking. And again, as a young man, seeing Catherine Zeta-Jones, swoon, and I'm sure for a lot of people, as Antonio Banderas on another side of the fence, like, I don't know. I really like this film. I like the finale. I like that everyone has something to do in the finale, and I don't know. It's just satisfying. I just find it to be a lot of fun. I like Zorro. I like this movie. I feel like I'm kind of alone here. For me, it's number 3, believe it or not.
Ooh.
Bill, go ahead and tear me apart.
You know what? I actually couldn't get into the first 40 minutes because I just couldn't get my head around Anthony Hopkins in the role. It's when he started training him is when this took off, and I was like, this is actually really good. And the climax is nice. It's actually a really fun movie once it gets going. Because when I was watching it, I was like, oh God, this is going to be like 9 or 10 after about a half an hour. But I actually put it as 6. So it gets really good. But I just think as you said, it's got slow parts. But overall, I thought it was, like you've all talked about, the stuff that you've talked about, and it's really, really just kind of a fun movie once it gets going, I suppose. It's the best.
Final thought on it from me. Of all the other films that are on this, and all the films from 1998, like they had relied heavily on soundtracks to promote the movies and put people in the seats. This didn't really have a soundtrack. Had a
score. It was scored.
Like, there was no you thought you have like Bryan Adams or somebody in 1998 writing a fucking what he did for Don Juan DeMarco, something like that, some Mexican style guitar, and there was nothing for it, which is strange. So that's the only thing. But
I feel very like Zorro here, and as I just swung in, fucked everything up, and fucked right off. This is like when I put Top Gun into number 1 of our Oscars list. It's like I'm just like, boom, deal with it, everybody. So, there you go. I'm a fan of Zorro. Please tell me there's a Zorro fan in there. Just leave a Z in the comments, okay? That's all I want. Okay. So, of course, we're going to go from one warrior to another. From The Mask of Zorro, the 9th highest grossing film was Disney's Mulan. What are our thoughts on Mulan? We'll come to you first, Phil, this time.
I've actually never ever seen this before, which is weird because I've seen pretty much all the Disney ones. The animation is class. Just the whole story is kind of like nowadays you see it in a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Like the heroism stuff. It's kind of overdone. But things up back then, it was like all kind of new. That kind of female roles were kind of So it's kind of, I really, really loved the animation and the action scenes, and the opening is just brilliant as well. It's just such a fun thing to watch. Do you know what I mean? The attention to detail and all the coloring is phenomenal, visually stunning. And I'd actually put it as, I think it was 4. Yeah, 4.
I think this is actually, is this the first fully animated movie that we watched? I know we
Uh,
watched some animated shows. It might be the first animated movie we've done here.
yeah.
It was.
Mm,
Yeah.
Could be, yeah.
next idea.
It was,
there
I
you go.
suppose it would be a great thing as well, like for kids back in the day to see this kind of breakout character. You know, is
Yeah.
just such. Yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. I quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go. So next, Mulan is one I really enjoyed as well. It's one that I kind of like. I did see it when I was younger. I know I went to the cinema to watch it, but like I'd be lying if I said I had kind of any memories, back like then. And I think it was one that's interesting in that it came at the end of like the Disney kind of renaissance, like which was when Disney really kind of basically turned it around. It was kind of from the Little Mermaid on really kicked off this new era where Disney were on top of animation. And this was the last one. I think Tarzan came after, and that was the actual end of the renaissance. But this for me is like one that, because it was at the tail end, that it gets kind of overlooked. People are kind of looking back at it now, I think, a bit more because of the whole kind of female empowerment angle that was kind of a rarity. Like Mulan is a Disney princess that could take her fucking head off. There's not many Disney princesses like that.
How did the remake do? Like, was that well received? I haven't seen it.
See, I haven't seen it either. I actually have it here somewhere behind me. I haven't watched it yet. I think it was generally not loved. Like, they took out a lot of things. They made it kind of more of an action-y movie, as far as I know. The songs are kind of, I think, in the score on it. So it's a very different movie. I've heard people say it's not bad, but it's not good. It's like, it was that kind of awkward thing where it wasn't good enough to be its own thing and not good enough as a remake of something that people loved. So it kind of awkward. I think it also came out like just around the time of COVID, or when cinemas were kind of iffy. So it wasn't one that really broke out. Like, but people kind of love this one now, and I would be lying if I said I didn't have a soft spot as well. I love a lot of the music in it. I love the kind of themes, and again, the animation is beautiful. I love it that it's a kind of a different style to a lot of the Disney stuff that we get. Reflection is a fantastic song in general.
The only thing I didn't like was the fact that he sounded a bit like Donkey.
yeah. I mean, they took that character out of the remake, and I understand why. It's a totally pointless. Like, you just know they were like, we need to market something to the kids here because they might not buy them a sword wielding samurai lady or whatever, or sword wielding geisha. So they're like, here we go, cute dragon that talks and makes funny jokes. It really kind of is like,
yeah.
If that was out of it, it would be good, but I understand why it's there. I would say it's not my favorite Disney film. It has a lot of redeeming elements. I think the story is good, as the animation, the voice acting, and the songs. So for me, it's just in the middle, but I think it's a pretty strong list in general. I would put it at number 5.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's number 4 on my list. It is based, again, like Zorro, was based on like a Chinese legend. Mulan was actually a story that they used to tell to their kids years ago, and she was actually, the story was pretty much as the film went, except for she didn't reveal herself until after the war was over. It was like months later where the soldier all came, they find their compadre and realized it was actually a woman. And it's a story they used to tell to their kids in China. Don't ask me when they stopped telling the story, but it's obviously based on something. So probably one of the reasons why it's such a compelling story throughout the film, that is probably most of it's based on, maybe it's based on a real person, but it's based on some urban legend in China. Regards to the dragon, when I was looking up on about it, Disney didn't actually want to put the dragon into it. Well, whoever's creating it, somebody said something about dragons don't have to be, they were thinking of a big giant dragon, and they told them dragons can be whatever size you wanted. So that's the only reason they actually put the dragon in that small in the first place. They could have had a big giant dragon, which would have been weird, because then Eddie Murphy was a donkey and he married a dragon and had babies with the dragon, which is all fucking connected.
It's all connected, yeah.
Like, whoa, hang on. This is not a Disney movie. Shrek, get fucking back. We're not having any singing in that fucking film. One thing I did like more about it was that I found out just today that Pat Morati, who played Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid, did the voice of the Emperor. I was like, yeah. I was like, nice. I like it even more now. But overall, like, it's of Disney movies of that era, like, it's not all singing and dancing and laughing. You just like, fuck, I can't listen to any more Disney songs. Like, she is a Disney princess. She wore trousers. Only one of 3 Disney princesses to ever wear trousers. Which, for 1998 was, again, something that you wouldn't normally see. Nowadays, it would expect it, but back then was probably a big big thing for them. I'm not, obviously did pretty well at the box office.
I really wish you hadn't given that stat about trousers. Now I'm just thinking about every Disney princess. I'm like, which one wears trousers? I think two of them, and it's wrecking my head. I'm gonna. Is googling Disney princesses trousers a bad idea? Am I gonna get weird?
I won't tell you. I'll let you find out for yourself.
I'm pretty much on the same wavelength as yourselves, to be honest. Mulan was my number 5. And Phil, pretty much, I echo everything that Phil said. I had a smile on my face through the whole movie. Do you know what I mean? I really did. I was entertained. I liked what I was seeing. Even the comedic timing as well. It was just pure enjoyment. You could sit there and watch with a kid, but I mean, I said I'd never seen this, and I was sat there with a kid watching it. But like, I mean, yeah, I really, I just enjoyed it more than anything. You know, there was no ifs or buts about it, and it was. Do you ever hear Phoebe in Friends and she says, I'd so want to be not appreciated in my own time. And I think Mulan suffers from this a little bit because like she's a phenomenal lead character. Like, you know, she really, really is. And like, now I'm kind of wishing I had the money to go to cinema like he did when I was small, because I definitely didn't see this. But like, you know, so far ahead of its own time, you know, and it's a shame that it's not been appreciated as much now. But yeah, I thought she's the ultimate heroine. No, she really, really is. As well, though, without being too, I don't need no man, you know, without being that either. So, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed. Just smile on my face. I'd only be saying what you're saying, but yeah, absolutely enjoyed it. Number 5 for me.
And you can actually thank this movie for launching Christina Aguilera's career, like
yeah,
Reflection.
Yeah, that was a surprising one when I saw it. I was like, oh. But I mean, yeah, I think actually the music in general is really good. Like I said, Reflections is a good song, but I Make a Man Out of You, and God, there's another one in there. A Girl Worth Fighting For. Those are all like banger songs. Like those are 3 good songs, and you don't even get that in a lot of Disney movies. Like, so yeah, I think it was just a victim of, by the time it came out, like the people who had grown up with some of the earlier Disney films had grown out of it, and there was a few films that were not as critical or commercial as a hit, and it kind of suffered as a result, which is kind of a shame. But yeah, Mulan, it sounds like kind of over-delivered for a lot of us, so that's all good. But the next film we're going to talk about is a film that's going to make us all feel too old for this shit, which is Lethal Weapon 4. Now, I'm going to start off this time and say that I didn't watch this, and I'm telling you why, because I watched it about 2 years ago for my own podcast when I was talking about Richard Donner when he passed. And I kind of find it interesting because I want to know if you guys watch this having an awareness of the rest of the Lethal Weapon films, or like totally in a vacuum, because I watched it at the end of a marathon of Richard Donner's films, and I kind of feel like that was the way to do it, and that was another reason I didn't want to go back and watch it. But you know, it's kind of weird, like that when people are like, oh, terrible films, they're like Lethal Weapon 4 is like the bad one, and I'm kind of like, it's a slightly worse than the third one, maybe, if I was to go really into Lethal Weapon canon here. But I think it's still pretty enjoyable. I think, like, you know, the chemistry is still there. This was the most expensive of the Lethal Weapon films. It really does show. I think what it really suffers from is it's kind of now fallen into some of its own tropes. Like, feels like everyone's trying to sport a catchphrase. We got everyone kind of all wacky kind of team ups. There's too many characters in this movie altogether. It feels like they just keep adding characters, and they're like, hey, you could be in the next one, and now look at it. Like, it kind of feels like weirdly Fast and Furious of its time in that way, which is a very strange comparison that I just didn't think I was going to make until now. I like Joe Pesci and Chris Rock, even though Chris Rock is basically just doing his Chris Rock thing the whole time. I think the ending is very cheesy, kind of soap opera-y with the kind of delivery of the baby. It feels really weird and out of place. It feels like they're really like, this is going to tie a bow on the whole series, and you're just like, I guess. I don't know. I mean, Jet Li is cool. I feel like there's some interesting kind of action and shots in it. I feel there's some positives to it, to be honest. I don't think it gets the praise it deserves, but I don't think it's deserving of much praise either. I think it's slightly better than what people say, if that counts for anything. But I think, again, the Lethal Weapon films for me are pretty solid in general. I put it at 6, which is, you know, okay. Don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is, in my opinion. But what are our own thoughts on Lethal Weapon 4, guys?
Yeah, number 6 for me as well. I'm a big fan of the Lethal Weapon franchise. I think this one was actually better than the third, to be honest. Okay. Again, probably because I was at an adolescent age, probably saw it, pretty much sure I saw it in the cinema. Probably the first one I actually got to see in the cinema. And Chris Rock was, you know, hot at the time. Like, he was fucking on fire. Like, and you know, him and Joe Pesci on screen together. Like I wish they got their own standalone movie from it, or you know, made it, you know, not the two characters, but you know, had their own movie. I know Joe Pesci stopped acting for about 6 years after this film, like, but it's this probably the funniest of the franchise, even though there's humor in the other three. Like it's because of those two, their scenes together really makes it stand out. I don't know that when they were making it, like they didn't even have these parts written when Shane Black was finishing off the script. I think they went back and rewrote it, and they, you know, wanted Chris Rock in the movie because he was just after getting, you know, exposed to then around the American. They wanted to throw him into it, and they wanted to bring Joe Pesci back just to get him back into it. I think Chris Rock's character was originally written to be a gay character, and they didn't know how to write it properly, so they decided to throw in him being married to his daughter secretly instead, just to have Chris Rock in the movie. You know, it was pure random, like that they could have left him out of the movie, and it probably would just as good. One good thing I really liked about it, again, Jet Li, fucking phenomenal. Like it was his first probably American movie he ever made. Yeah. He was too fast for the shutter speed of the camera. They had to ask him to slow down. That fight scene, I think, when he fought the two of them, they were like, I think that's the first Lethal Weapon film where Riggs isn't the main person fighting the bad guy at the end. They had to use the two of them because he was so fast that they didn't believe that Riggs could beat him on his own. So they had Murtaugh, his first final battle scene, like, you know, after the three films, you think, how is it? You know, it's a buddy comedy film. Like, how has he not been in the final battle scene before? So yeah, enjoyed it. It's number 6. It's not the worst at the list. It's, you know, again, there's no real bad films in the list if you want to count whatever we're going to talk about later. But yeah, it was okay.
Oh well, here I come.
There you go.
This is my number 10. I know, but I don't really fucking care. Honestly, this movie gave me anxiety. You know what I mean? Or it just already raised the level of existing anxiety already, because Chris Rock's just too loud for me. And I just, anytime he come on, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, I can't even hear what you're saying. My ears, I just stopped shouting. And then I love Joe Pesci, but him mixed in with Chris Rock, I was just like, oh, fucking hell, this is just a sensory overload. And I'm not being funny now, right? Okay, but the fight scene, fuck off, he's not, like, stop, no, just, I can suspend my disbelief, right? As much as the next person, like, but just fucking stop. And this, near the start of the movie where, you know, your man has set a light and he goes shooting off into the air, at that point already, I fucking knew from that point on when I thought, here we go. Fuck's sake. And do you know, I like, as I said, like, I'm all for, like, I will jump in 2 feet and I'll be like, right, take me away on a journey now with a movie. And when you go, like, in the first fucking 10 minutes, I thought, here we fucking go now. Stop now with your man. Oh, look at him. And it was just looked so bad. I was like, no. And then I just, right, to put it on, I put a bow on it, like they did with the old delivery at the end, right? It shouldn't have been made. It was one movie too far. There was just, it just should have stopped before Lethal Weapon 4. I just felt like everything was overacted. They're like, you know, pandering to those who were starring in it. So they've come back for the 4th movie. Only positive was Jet Li out of it. It was my number
10. In some good news, yeah, Liz, part 5 is in production.
I was going to say, apparently they're still talking.
They're not too old for this shit.
Richard Donner apparently said to Mel Gibson, like, if I die, you're to direct the next Lethal Weapon. And I'm like, no, they actually are too old for this shit. Like, and now it actually would be kind of sad.
Did you know Mel Gibson was only 40 when they made this film?
Oh, that explains the fight scene. So
40.
Yeah. It's weird because was Action in the Rain a big thing? It's in a lot of these in 98. Yeah, I'd be on the fence, but I didn't hate it and I didn't love it. It was okay. I put it at, like, let me see, where did I put a 5? It started off as in your face kind of thing, and then of course the jokes keep coming and they're not particularly funny. No, not funny at all.
No, they're not. They're fucking funny, Phil.
Outdated. Just fuck you with the cell phones.
Yeah, there's a lot of them are forced.
Like I'm
But
doing
even-
it to Phil,
but
but the
that's one
interrupting of each other and just the fucking finishing each other's jokes and taking the piss out of Joe Pesci. I just feel like we've seen it all before.
And there's some
That's
stupid kind
well,
of
and that for the sake of that line, we actually have seen it before. That's literally, I think, in Joe Pesci in the second one, he goes like, "They fuck you at the drive-through," and then they like it's like all these kind of running jokes. That's kind of what annoys me about this movie. It kind of feels very like we've done all this before. We really don't need this one, but okay.
That part where he sticks the thing on his back and then he puts it back on is just like, this is just. I mean, the action scenes were good. Jet Li is great in it. He really is. So like, I wouldn't totally dismiss it to really low, but there's a few on this that are worse than it. But I can't. I thought it was okay. That's all I can. Yeah, it wasn't really funny. I don't know how they're going to make another one. I really don't.
I'm boycotting it. Fuck this.
Yeah. So
Well,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, Jesus, that was. It doesn't sound like that many people enjoyed watching Lethal Weapon. Hopefully, you enjoyed watching the Truman Show, as seemingly everyone in the universe at that time enjoys watching Truman, which is weird. Like I like, even in the context of this movie, I can't ever imagine watching this show and being entertained. Just a guy, because like this must be like the most entertaining that show has ever been. Like they really watched like 25 years of him just being like, "Hey, how's it going? Good afternoon, good night." Like going through a regular boring life. I'm like, how? Anyway, that's just my own. That's the kind of thing I did with this
modern
movie, though, to be
TV
honest.
at the minute. Everybody watches everybody on TV, just sitting there watching.
But like, I feel like he sums off as the most vanilla man. I want a bit of drama, like. You know, it's like aside from his dad dying, it sounds like there was just 15 years of him just going through his life. You know, I'm just like, oh god. Ugh.
I
Anyway.
hated it as a kid as well. I did not like it as a kid. It's weird because upon rewatch, it's amazing. I really love it. I suppose I should just start off with it.
Go for it. Yeah.
So I put this. Let me just check where I put it. I put this as number 2. This is really, really good, and again, way ahead of its time. But now, if people are watching it today, would probably be like, "Why don't he just kind of, like people just kind of, really like with Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff." It's just so much ahead of its time. This is Jim Carrey's first ever drama as well, isn't it? Like mainstream kind of drama.
Yeah.
I think The Majestic was afterwards. Yeah, like everybody in on it was. It's just a fascinating story, the fact that they get this whole town and this whole thing they can see from space, that everybody's in on it, and then the wife doing the odd joke here and there, trying to sell stuff is quite funny. But yeah, I would definitely put this one high up, as I said too. I really, really enjoyed it. What do you make of it?
It was my second time seeing it. I saw it a couple of years ago, and I liked it more first time. I think I don't know, one thing. This is gonna sound so stupid and snobby, but it's I like movies that kind of annoy me are movies I feel like I studied philosophy, that kind of that kind of movie, and I kind of get that vibe a little bit from this. I still also have it at number 2. I should preface that by saying, like, right away, I do think it's kind of an impressive film in a lot of ways, but it's a movie that, like, once I've seen it once, I kind of feel like anytime I see it, I'm kind of just picking it apart. Like I'm like, oh god, because now the economics television in my head, I'm just like, well, how would they make a season 2? Or like, were they really that lazy to not replace the actor there? Like, or like, all these things. Like, and again, there's lots of like little touches. I like the kind of propaganda elements they kind of throw in, the kind of fear of like when he goes to try travel somewhere. All those things are just amazing. Seeing how they come up with those things is really good. I don't know. I feel like I don't feel like it's as interesting as people say it is, but I do quite enjoy it. I also feel like it's a film that maybe hasn't aged well, because obviously with the kind of massive advent of the internet and rise of reality TV, it's like you can say it in some ways it has aged well, in that you can say it kind of predicted a lot of that stuff. But I also feel like it's maybe, I don't know, less outlandish in this day and age. That would be a thing. I mean, back in the early 2000s and 90s, there was people who were just on webcam 24/7 going through their life, and now we have reality TV shows like that. And I don't know. I think it comes off a little bit goofier as a result. I feel like the tone of the film is a little bit weird. Like it's very kind of saccharine and kind of, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit goofier than it should be. I'd like if there was more drama to it. for me. But I still think it's a pretty strong film. Even though, again, I don't understand why anyone would watch this show, watching this man's life. That really, it just feels like he's like, and then he got married, and then he went to work, and then he had a boring time at work, and then he had a boring time at home. I'm like, how is this show still on the air? Like, this is, I don't know. Anyway, but then again, maybe that's me looking at it from a modern lens. I don't know. Jared, Liz, what do you think yourselves?
Okay. I hadn't seen the Truman Show before. It was my first time watching it, so it was an absolute delight for me. So kind of get what Tom is saying when you know, I don't know if I could watch it again. Do you know, that kind of way? I think once was enough, and that's not a bad reflection on the movie. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I hadn't seen it before, hadn't read up on it, so I didn't know what to expect. But the whole idea of it is just so fucking barmy. It's amazing, you know. Another thing about this movie, obviously, you know, it foreshadowed what we're now living in, you know, which is just madness. But it was literally gaslighting at its finest. Do you know what I mean? It really was. It was just like you were watching, you're like, oh my God. As you said now, you know, acknowledging the fear element and things like that of like, you know, oh, no, nothing's wrong. It's actually you, you know, are you feeling okay? And I was just like, Jesus Christ, this is so current. It's crazy. And I actually had it at my number one. So there you go. And I want to give a huge shout out to Laura Linney because I thought she was phenomenal, and with the product placement I thought she was just so good. I thought it was brilliant. Just that she keeps trying. It was just, she was very entertaining in it as well. So yeah, number one for me.
I love the bit where she said this is not professional.
Yes. You know,
it does have one of my favorite quotes of anything ever, where he just goes, "Somebody stop me! I'm being spontaneous." yeah, that's like a life quote to live out by, isn't it?
It totally is. I'm gonna include that in my vocabulary going forward. I think.
Number two for me as well. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, another film I probably saw in the cinema. Probably way better when it first came out because of the way things have gone. Like, but you know, if anybody's watching it now for the first time after watching this podcast, because of our recommendations, you know, go into it thinking about it. You know, 1988, the internet was still in its early days. You know, nobody had it.
Still
not everybody.
Well,
no, it was still dial-up, but not everybody had it at home. Like, it was still infancy. Like, but saying that, he was in a secluded, you know, small town. You know, they could have controlled the narrative. Like, he grew up there, so he may even, you know, not knowing what the internet was. You know, even if it did exist, you know, in every household, you know, they could have just controlled it where he would never even know what it is. They just told him what everything was. So, you know,
that's actually something you brought up there is actually something that I also remember kind of annoying me, and I understand why they do it this way. Like, in that it's exactly like our world. And I know they did that so it could be commentary on our world and our society and stuff. But I would have feel like if you wanted to make a show like that, you could make it fucking anything. Well, you could totally change the laws of the universe. You could be like, oh yeah, by the way, you're just surrounded by animals. You're the only human in the world. Like make it totally insane. Then you'd have me watching. You know,
the original script. I think the original script, or whether the idea, concept, the script before it was finished was New York City. They wanted to recreate New York City and have them, you know, in this big fucking massive city, and they realized it was probably going to be too much of a budget to try and recreate New York City and, you know, even go to New York and shut down streets. So they just built the. You
could have made it anything though. You could have made it like Planet of the fucking Apes in there, like, and it's just like this is one person living it. I'm like, but then again, I suppose, you know, then you'd probably have people asking like, that's kind of cruel to put a child in there for 30 years. But okay, fair enough.
Made him Tarzan, like, you know.
I don't know, some kids, you know.
It's cool. Like, with the town, there was a small town in Florida where they filmed everything, and there was like pretty much the whole population of the town ended up in the movie. They all got parts, you know, with the small background extra parts where they all were part of it. Like, so it's cool that, you know, they didn't go to New York and try and shut down streets and try and do it. It would have been completely different. Like, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought Ed Harris was phenomenal in it as well. As one of his best roles. And the fact that Ed Harris and Jim Carrey never met until the premiere of the movie, they never had a scene together, which is mad when you think about it. And
that's a great fact.
Yeah, they actually met, shook hands for the very first time at the premiere of the movie. They'd never met before, like, which is fucked up. Like, you know, they didn't do any script reads or anything before the film. They didn't do any prep because, you know, there was no scenes together. They didn't need to. which is
That
cool.
might be a good thing because Ed Harris kind of strikes me as like an old school actor, and I think Jim Carrey would have done us fucking headed.
Yeah, Jim
Like,
Carrey got a lot of freedom as well, and I think he
Yeah.
improvised a
like
lot.
there's that quote from like, is it Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey? They working together on Batman Forever, and like Jim Carrey went up to Tommy Lee Jones, be like, "How are you doing?" You know, he's with his family or something, and I think Tommy Lee Jones just leaned into him and said, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery." Which is like the most Tom Lee Jones thing you could say to him, and he was just like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So I wonder would have gone it similarly, but yeah, look, it feels like we're all giving a lot of thumbs up. There's definitely something going on with Truman, something good. What about Mary though? Is there something about Mary, the sixth highest grossing film domestically in 1998 summer? Absolute massive blockbuster comedy on a level we really don't see much of anymore. But yeah, the Farrelly brothers. There's something about Mary. I'll take this one to start. Oh yeah, this is actually I think the first Farrelly brothers film I saw. It's such a film that they don't make anymore. In that, and for good reason at times. It kind of feels like a strange and sort of unpleasant movie. Like it kind of has a weird sort of nasty streak that I kind of like. Like it's not it's a film that's not afraid to be unproblematic, for lack of a better term. But there's just some shit in this that's just amazing. I think like if there's something I would complain about is that I think it peaks early on. Like that first scene where it's like Keith David and he gets caught in a zipper is one of the funniest things ever. That like because it just keeps going wrong. Where like even if you were trying to hold in laughter, it's like, oh, it keeps escalating. It's like, okay, well, first of all, I wasn't masturbating. All of a sudden, he was masturbating. Ted's masturbating there, and you're like, oh shit, okay. And then it's like, okay, how'd you get the Franks above the beans? And you get Franks and beans inside her. And then all of a sudden, it's a fireman and the police officer, and it's like, oh, and then it's like, okay, at least now we have a situation. It's like, put it up. We got a bleeder. It's like, it's amazing. It's just like you'll be rolling. And again, aside from that, it's strange because it's like Ben Stiller kind of feels like he did a lot of these kind of type of films around then, kind of the film where he was like lusting after the kind of girl, and it feels like this is kind of one of those kind of prototypical ones, but very very dark. And again, it's a film that is it's weird, and I think that's what I like about it. Like even having like the weird Greek chorus in it of just the guy singing with Gara and who gets assassinated at the end of the film, and then it just ends. You're like, what the? And again, it's a film they would not make now for a lot of reasons. It just really feels like they had total creative freedom, and I love it. I mean, also I had the total crush on Cameron Diaz growing up, so this was like totally in my wheelhouse. It's just a strange film. I like all the kind of suitors Mary has. Lee Evans is quite entertaining, even though his American accent is so fucking dodgy.
Yeah.
Chris Elliott is great. I love Matt Dillon in this. He is like the biggest sleaze maybe in film history. He is like the most horrible person. But I love it. I like the scene of him like trying to save the dog is gas. Like it's a really funny film. It holds up mostly, as maybe a few things that are kind of problematic in there. And I will say, like, a lot of people kind of point to the kind of the disabled character. And I will say, like, the Farrelly brothers have a lot of disabled characters in their movies. And generally speaking, they actually give a lot of opportunity to disabled actors. So I don't think they should have that thrown at them. A lot of people will kind of do that. I mean, I knew the actor in this; he's not disabled at all, and I recognize him from Deadwood. But that aside, I don't know. I like the.
He's actually Kenny, the cameraman in Scream.
Yeah.
He is as well. I was thinking that. Yeah, I can't remember his name. His name escaped me, but yeah. No, I think this is actually a very good film. It has the right degree of strangeness and kind of sleaze and weirdness. It's the one that like it feels almost wrong to be watching, and that's why it's enjoyable as well. For me, it's number 4. There's something about Mary. Yeah, definitely my number 4 pick for this one. I don't know how are you guys feeling about Mary.
Well,
I actually put it as number. Let me just see where I put it for us there. I put it as number 3. Again, same thing. I thought it was so weird, but I actually really, really liked it. I thought it was hilarious the fact that they're like 25 pretend to be 16, which is. I know they did it a lot back then, but they particularly Ben Stiller looked ridiculously old at the start. Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff in it that is getting considered dodgy and stuff, but there's some funny bits as well, like what you were saying there about the bathroom scene. I can still hear his Frankenbeans in my head.
Frankenbeans, yeah.
Yeah,
You can never look at if you ever hear the word Frankenbeans again, it's just ruined for you now. Like I've been American, I've seen Frankenbeans, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to touch that.
yeah. Like I'd say now, if one of the new generation watched that, though, they would be thinking that every man is a stalker. Like just 6 men following her, for 25 years is it's a bit mental.
Yeah, they're really like there's a lot of bad characters in this. It almost felt like the cast of It's Always Sunny or something were thrown into this. Like they're all kind of awful, and it's just like Ben Stiller just kind of happens to be the least awful, I guess. And also like Cameron Diaz, like Mary is like an absolute saint. Like she's the most like lovable woman in this. Like the way they play it up, like you almost would see how they get obsessed, but you're like, oh, don't cross that line though. That's kind of really weird.
Also, as well, the auntie is in the Nightmare on Elm Street. I think is she the teacher in Nightmare on Elm Street? I think she is.
She was in one of them. I looked her up. Right?
Yeah.
She's been in. I think she's been in every fucking Farley Brothers movie. Like she was in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
And a lot. Like she.
Yeah,
Was,
I think she's one of the teachers in Dumb and Dumber. Maybe
if you saw her in Kingpin, you'd never look her again. She was the old woman who owned the motel that they were staying in. They couldn't afford to pay. So they had to pay her sexual favors. It was just fucking rotten. The way they played the scene was fucking brilliant. But in this film, which that the scene with the binoculars and they go around these looking for
the scene with the dog and the dog falls out the window.
Stop!
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I will always love a scene where it's like someone fighting a fake dog. It's always like I don't know what it was. It's just like a film could be awful, and all of a sudden the film just goes up a few points because it's always gas. But like, there's loads of good, like the scene where he accidentally confesses to like a murder. Being a murderer's gas.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the like infamous hair gel scene either, by the way, which is like well up there. It's kind of I think it's been part of a lot. Actually, there's a funny anecdote of that where I think Kevin Smith had a story where like he had that in a script from Mallrats at some stage, and someone read that and said, Kevin, no one is going to want to see a movie where someone rubs that into their hair. And then a few years later, biggest comedy of the time. It's like, oh shit.
Brilliant. Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. It's number 3 for me. Probably one of the best Farley Brother movies there is, which would be a good list to do someday. Now that we watched this one. I love doing research on films. If you didn't know, but I love finding out this story that the zipper scene was based on a true story. The Farley brothers, their sister was listening to records in their basement, and one of her male friends went up to the bathroom to use it and pretty much did the exact same thing as Ben Stiller's character does in this. Zipped it all the way up. Their dad was a doctor, so he had to go in and help him, which is so bad. But their parents didn't tell him too much later. They didn't want to embarrass the kid, so instead of embarrassing him right then and then, they said embarrass him 10 years later. And
I was going to say, let's embarrass him by putting his trauma, bringing it up like 20 years later on a massive worldwide level.
Oh, like my god!
And the scene, the actual scene, when they bring him out in the ambulance, and the trolley, whatever you call it,
the
gurney falls wasn't supposed to happen. They just left it in. They thought it was so funny. They checked Ben Stiller, he's okay, and they just put it in the film anyway, just for the hell of it.
I could go on about that scene forever because I think it is actually the most perfect comedy scene. But I love the way they're going on about it for ages, and they don't show the damage for so long, and then they give you like a few seconds of it out of nowhere, and you get it, and it's hilarious because you didn't think they were going to show it. And it's really unexpected. I was like, whoa. Okay.
For the trailer when it was coming out, when they had the trailer for it, when they did the scene of him pulling up the zip, and he went, and it cuts to your man saying, "We got a bleeder," so they didn't do in between. It was just for the trailer. We're like, we have to watch this. That clip was just enough for us to go to cinema to watch it.
That'll do it.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in it. There's so many, we talk about it. There's so many good scenes in it. Like there's some scenes in it that were meant for something else. Like you said about the scene. What did you say a minute ago? The hair gel scene was supposed to be something else. The meat on a stick was actually supposed to be in an episode of Seinfeld that was never released. So them talking about their more meat on a stick was supposed to be them sitting in the booth at Seinfeld. Would have been a cool one for them to talk about. But
that sounds very Seinfeld, actually. When you say that, that's absolutely something George would say. Like Jesus. And
Cameron Diaz and Matt Dillon were actually dating when they made the film as well, which is I don't know how things worked out afterwards. Like obviously they didn't stay together, but I'm sure she kissed somebody with big fucking white teeth.
Matt Damon, did he make the other sleazy film at the same time as that? Wild Things was the exact same time as this.
Wild Things.
Would have been late 80s, I'd say, yeah.
Wild Things.
Or late 90s, sorry.
Yeah. It just...
Yeah, Jesus, yeah.
That was the
It's just
first.
because he looks really bad with a tash. He looks really sleazy.
He looks really bad.
It's just literally like Porn King of the West, doesn't he?
What did you think, though?
Same. I enjoyed it as much as you did as well. I'll never get over Franken Beans as long as I live. I will never get over it because I never copped it as to Franken Beans, and then when I figured out what Franken Beans was, do you know, it goes to show that I don't have Franken Beans. Do you know? But like, I swear to Jesus, once I did, I remember I burst out laughing once in Jersey, and I was like, Franken Beans, and he was like, I just figured out what that means, and I get these little notions now and then. But yeah, exactly what you were saying. I mean, the jokes were hilarious. As I said, you know, everybody played their part so well, and that's what I had noted as well, Tom, was Ben Stiller was the lesser of all evils. You know, he really was. But one thing that irked me slightly about this movie, right, was that Cameron Diaz was an amazing surgeon, but couldn't figure out that Lee Evans was taking the piss. Right? That irked me a tad. I was like, especially like, you know, the completely over the top as only Lee Evans can do it scene of him trying to get up when he fell in the office, and like, you know, the crutches are flying everywhere, and he just literally looks like a giraffe trying to pick something up off the ground. It's hardly graceful, and I was like, she's such a good surgeon, and she can't see that your man is literally grand. So that did irk me slightly. But other than that, Mary was 4 on my list.
Very nice. I mean, we're all talking, these are all monster hits, but there's only one monster on this list, and that is Godzilla, Roland Emmerich's 1998 remake, reboot, I don't know what you want to call it, or just general adaptation of the beloved Japanese monster. What do we think about this one, Jer?
Number 9 on my list. I grew up, I hate saying it every fucking episode, like, but I grew up watching the old Godzilla Japanese ones. I used to love watching them when I was younger. So when this came out, and the 90s heavily relied on the soundtrack, and they dropped Puff Daddy, what he was called back then, and then Jamiroquai released his, and all these songs started coming out promoting the movie, 6 or 7 months before the movie even came out. I think they were out. Super excited for it. You know, I was a big Matthew Broderick fan, Ferris Bueller, like, who doesn't want to go and see him in a movie? And then the movie came out, and you had pretty much half the Simpsons cast throughout the movie. And that was pretty much it. Like, everything else just like, the Godzilla in it wasn't, the animation, whatever they used to make Godzilla in it was just, and it was, they didn't have CGI back then. It was, I don't know what they used for it. It was,
it's almost like an overlay. It's like they created it and put it over the footage.
So really ruined the film. I think they could have just left it as, and you saw bits of him. You didn't have to see the whole thing. Whenever they actually released, they could have just had a one scene at the very end where they had him killed something. They should never shown the whole lot of him throughout the film if they didn't have the technology to make him. I would have preferred the old Godzilla fucking cardboard cutouts that they used to use in Japanese over this thing. The story wasn't great either. Like, it's just following him. He was going feeding, laying eggs and stuff. It's just like, they could have come up with something better, like destroy the city. He destroys the city.
Also, as well, how does he have 200 eggs?
I don't have it that much.
The only good thing about the good thing I read about it, which was funny as hell when I reading up about it, is in the scenes and when they shot in Hawaii, like all the water scenes, they were in in water for a lot of the film. They had to wear wetsuits underneath their costumes throughout the shoot, and when they finished wrapping, one of the days where they were finishing wrapping, Hank Azaria had his top off when he was wearing the wetsuit. Zipped open, and he pulled it back just to get a bit of air. And I think it was 2 or 3 weeks where they had to wear the wetsuits. And Matthew Broderick's like, "Hey, your wetsuit opens at the front. Hey, he couldn't reach his at the back. He could never get it open." And he just turned around and said, "Yeah, they all open at the front." He wore the wetsuit on backwards for the whole shoot. He was fucking dying throughout it. He couldn't fucking breathe. He couldn't get it off, and they were all laughing at him throughout.
God bless us and spare us. I suppose I'll jump in, will I? Yeah, cool. That was what on your list, number 9. Yeah. On my list, Godzilla was number 8. Pretty similar reasons to you, love, to be honest with you. My first comment when it opened, and at the very, very when the movie opened itself on our telly, not when it opened in cinema because couldn't afford that. The backstory, I suppose, and I just remember saying to Jerry, I was like, it's a bit of a glorified lizard. I just didn't take it serious as it was. I don't know. I just thought glorified lizard. It wasn't believable for me. There was quite a number of things wrong with this movie for me. The Audrey character, horrific, absolutely terrible, not believable whatsoever. The way she was wrote was just fucking dire. Just not believable whatsoever. Matthew Broderick, I could take or leave, to be honest with you. Kind of in the right role, but the story was just so shite that it was really, really hard to kind of, not that they'd be worried about my praise, but it was really, really hard to get invested in anything because the story was just so shite. As you said, it's based around this glorified lizard who, wants to go somewhere to lay eggs. And it just went from being this, and then it grew into this huge monster. And now it's coming towards New York, the busiest city in the world. But now, guess what? Now it's also like, asexual. And guess what? This one now is so asexual. We've never heard of it before. We don't know what this is, but now it can lay 200 eggs. And it was just getting more fucking far-fetched. No, not that like a lizard walking around New York at 100 stories high isn't far-fetched. But it was just getting to the point where it was like, and then it was like a kid telling a story. Or that's the way I felt. It was like, and then this happened. And I was just like, oh, fucking hell, get to the point. And then the end of it was like, there's one left. And I just kind of felt that was a bit like, yeah, this is kind of going a bit shit. So look, there's still one egg left. And I was just like, no. I didn't mind Hank Azaria. I thought Victor was good. But then I'm a sucker for like a pure New Yorker as well. I just think they're like hilarious. But yeah, it was just, the best thing about this movie was Jamiroquai. But not as bad as Mel Gibson fighting. So yeah, for me, that was it.
Liz says Godzilla, overrated lizards. Or
you know what I mean? But
glorified lizards.
8 Godzilla movies, right? Or versions, or fucking remakes, or reboots, or boot me hole, whatever. There was like 38 of them. I'm just like, what is it about this glorified lizard?
Well, I'm actually gonna. This is kind of interesting because I feel like I'm about to praise the movie, but also my ranking does not reflect that at all. It's coming in at number 7 for me. I like I'm a fan of Godzilla. I would say more recent. I've always had a knowledge and awareness of, but I've been kind of watching some of the original ones. I'm actually looking right now just over there. There's a Godzilla / Jaws kind of poster. That I won't put on camera because then the camera will probably fuck it up. But I think, is there something to be said for when you think a film is going to be so bad that when it's not quite as bad, you think it's like, hey, that was okay. Yeah. I think that's kind of what happened to me here. I've been hearing how awful this film was for most of my life, like 25 years, I think, at this stage, nearly. No joke. I remember I got an argument with a friend about who would win Godzilla versus King Kong, and it turned out he was using this Godzilla. I was like, that's the shit Godzilla. And he was like, I know it's shit. And because of that, I'm not a fan of Roland Emmerich at all. I can't think if I've ever seen a Roland Emmerich film I actually enjoyed. And I also, this came after watching 2 of the other films on the list that I really didn't enjoy. And because of that, I felt like this was kind of okay. I was entertained by it, not in a way where I'd throw it on and actually be really captivated. It was it was the kind of movie where I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Had it on the background, walked off, came back, was still going. I was like, hey, I'll keep watching this. That's very, very minor praise, I guess. The effects are awful. Yeah, they really shouldn't have tried. I think the film in general really feels like they wanted to capitalize on the success of Godzilla. I know they were kind of working on it, or not Godzilla, sorry, the success of Jurassic Park. I know they were working on it slightly before Jurassic Park was released, but it kind of has that kind of vibe. They're like, what do we have? Godzilla, let's do it. It's not really Godzilla, it's just a giant kind of T-Rex, really. In fact, I believe the Toho actually brought this character and redubbed him Zilla and had the actual Godzilla just fucking obliterate him in 2 seconds. That's how they feel about the film. Matthew Broderick is someone that, I like Ferris Bueller's, but in general, I've never been like, oh yeah, Matthew Broderick's in this. He's kind of fine. He's a wooden enough actor, but the film itself is kind of fine. I think there's parts where I actually really enjoy the look of the film. Aside from CGI, it does look kind of very cinematic. with some of the lights in the shadow and the rain and all that kind of stuff. I think the opening titles I love. Actually, the score and the titles are really well done. Kind of like it's deserving of a better movie. I also just want to say, like, one aside is like the mayor or whoever is like Roger Ebert and like Gene Siskel, like the world famous reviewers, and I was like, oh, they're gonna get destroyed and that's gonna roll their makes. Fuck you. No, they're just grand. And then I looked up the review, and Roger Ebert said the exact same thing. He was like, if you're going to put us in a movie, at least have us get squashed by the monster or something. This movie sucked, by the way. But yeah, I thought I think it was a very, very low bar, and it kind of surprised me in that it was slightly above the bar. But again, it's still number 7, so take that for what it's worth. Not really a glowing endorsement by all means. Just not as bad as I thought it would be. So there you go.
There you go.
Where did you weigh in on the whole Godzilla?
I also give it a 7. I was thinking, like, during it, are these people the dumbest people in the world?
Right?
There's a lot of, like, you know, the way Richard Gere would forget his lines and he'd kind of look, and then he'd say his lines.
Well, the fart acting.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And again, there's a lot of rain as well, and I think the rain just hides things better, but the effects are so bad. It's like somebody has a cardboard cutout and just stuck it over the footage.
Yeah.
And they obviously tacked on that love story as well, just to tack things on to fill it out because it wasn't long enough apparently. I think it was 2:20 or something. Was there something
very long?
2:15, yeah.
Quite long.
Without the love stories.
Yeah, and then the whole thing with the fish, and they did the fish scene twice as well. It was just like this is going on and on and on and on and on. I didn't hate it, but I thought that there was certain things in it, like the bit in the Madison Square Garden, I thought was quite cool with the smaller raptors.
That was pure a rip off of the museum scene in fucking Jurassic Park where the 2 raptors died before the T-Rex takes them out. Like, but that's what it felt like. They were getting chased by raptors as opposed to, you know, giant lizards.
Yeah, and I really didn't like the fact that they suddenly had 200 eggs. I just thought that was so far-fetched. It was like, come on. Yeah, and there was a few things they were trying to be funny as well, and it just wasn't working. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was just too far-fetched and too ridiculous. I
felt sorry for Jean Reno in it.
Yeah, exactly.
After Leon, like, you know, after some, you know, Ronan and some of the movies he's been in, like, this film is just, you know, a fucking mark against his name.
And he's a dodgy American accent as well.
He does. I do think it deserves some credit for casting Harry Shearer, the voice of Ken Brockman, as a news reporter, because I was like, every time I'm looking up, I'm like,
Actually, Hank Azaria, I think he threw in a Mo Sizlak sentence film accidentally, and they just left it in. I can't remember what it was now. He said something in his Mo voice. I think it was one of the scenes where he was shooting on top of a car or something. He said something. I can't remember what he says, but it's something that Mo always says. And they just decided to leave it in. He didn't realize he even said it. He just came out.
It feels like no one really cared about, in that way. Fucking leave it.
I thought it was over when the whole thing blew up. I completely forgot about. Oh no, there's one more.
That was him there. Actually, one egg left. Let's make a sequel. No,
I think, as far as I know, canonically, actually, that Godzilla is the Godzilla that in the animated series they made, and apparently the animated series is quite good. I never actually watched it or properly watched it as a kid, like, but it's quite good. But I mean, yeah, it sounds like our Godzilla isn't doing very well. I'm going to quote Jurassic Park here, and this probably applies to what they should have done. Is that you spend so much time wondering if you could, you never stop to think if you should. Which is what goes to the people who made this, which goes to the effects department. You know, maybe you could, you probably shouldn't have. We weren't there quite yet, but you know, New York might have had as bad a prop time with Godzilla if they had somebody who could talk to the animals. Which brings us to Dr. Dolittle, the Eddie Murphy version. I'm going to start off with this one. I'm going to highlight that I was 6 years old in 1998. I have a really soft spot for this film because I kind of grew up with it. It's also a film that, and I said it's weird to say the same thing I said about There's Something About Mary about this film. This is a film they would never make now. It's like a family film that's also like probably not really appropriate for kids in a way, and I think that's kind of why I gravitated towards it, and a few other people my age, where like There's references to things like The Exorcist. There's drug references. There's like weird nudity. There's mild swearing. There's like adult jokes throughout. You're like, this is just a weird movie that they would never make because it would never make money, and they would be warning the kids away from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's got an amazing voice cast as well. I mean, we're speaking of Simpsons cast now. I think actually the voice of Marge is in this. Julie Kavner, I think, is a pigeon along with Gary Shandling. I mean, the voice cast is phenomenal. Chris Rock is in this as well, making a second appearance in the movie here. Norm Macdonald. I'm a sucker for Norm Macdonald, man. If he's in anything, I'm gonna love it. He does a great job as the voice of the dog, Lucky. And then Albert Brooks as well. It's like the voice cast is like, man, there's so many talented, funny people in this. And the movie is
Ellen,
fine.
don't forget Ellen at the start.
And Ellen. Oh my god, that was driving me mad at the start. I was like, who is that?
Finding Nemo, Albert Brooks.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, shit. Yeah, Jesus, I didn't even think of that connection. But yeah, like it's, you know, there's some weird things in this. Like there's also like there's some racist line in there as well. I'm not Italian and I'm not pork or something. When someone calls him a guinea pig or something, you're like, whoa, whoa, take that out. I watch this on Disney Plus. Take that out of there, Disney. But also, like, I like the rats who are just unrepentant assholes. I think that's kind of funny. Like, doesn't matter. Like, they're like, I saved your life, and they're like, I don't care. Blah. The Mexican rats. There's references to Sling Blade and The Usual Suspects. I'm like, who's this kids film for? Like, and I don't know. I like the weirdness of it. There's an impotence joke, a suicidal tiger, a drug addicted squirrel. It's not an amazing film, but I kind of have a certain nostalgia for it. I think it has a bit of charm and a surprising amount of edge. For what you get out of a family film. I think that's kind of what endears it to me. I say all that. It's still like number 8, but I don't think it's like get down there to number 8. I'm like, okay, you're number 8 because the other films are a bit better than you. But I kind of have a soft spot, surprisingly, for it. And I know I'm probably alone in that. I don't know. What did we think? Phil, what did you make of Dr. Dolittle?
Hated it. I absolutely hated it. It's number 10 for me. I just think it wasn't funny. It was very kind of forced. Maybe I didn't see it either as a kid. Again, I completely missed it when it came out. I just thought that everything about it was just so fake. And it was kind of like what Liz was saying earlier about Chris Rock. The guinea pig was just too loud. Just too, I don't know, I can't really say much about it because I just hated it. I really, really didn't like it. And it felt like I was watching it, I was like, it's surely it's nearly over. I know there's another 45 minutes left.
Oh my god. Adult Tom is fine, but childhood Tom is crying in the corner, man. What have you done?
This is only an hour and 25 minutes long as well. It's the shortest movie on the list.
Yeah, no. This actually has Raven Simone as well, which yeah. And again, it has
there's 5 of these films, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah, there's 5 of these films. So, you know, we're halfway to if we ever need to do a top 10, we can just do a top 5, you know.
Isn't there one with John Cena as a voice as well?
Ooh,
no way. Is that the Robert Downey Jr.
one? So
yeah, I think it is, yeah.
Like this franchise
franchise
with Eddie Murphy and Raven Simone and all these voice actors.
Yeah, which, by the way, if you look into the history of Dr. Dolittle films, like historically, they have the worst luck. Like one of the first Dr. Dolittle film, or one of the first Dr. Dolittle films, basically killed the Hollywood musical. For decades. There's this one which again just wasn't very good.
This one,
and then the Robert Downey Jr. one was a big bomb as well.
This one killed Eddie Murphy.
That's true. It killed Eddie Murphy's career.
He done the Professor, and then he done this, and he done the Holy Man and stuff around the same time. And
I think he did a sequel to this and a sequel to Nutty Professor. And I think after that it was like, oh yeah, you're kind of done. Yeah, we've seen your shit. Get out of here, man. Go voice a donkey.
Well, that Shrek's the only thing that probably saved him, like up until Dreamgirls or something like nobody took him seriously after this.
I am absolutely going to say that to somebody this week. Do you know what? Go voice the donkey.
Yeah,
I am absolutely using that. Is an amazing line. I am so using that at some point this week. Be prepared.
Write that down. This is number 8 in my list as well. I hated it. I know what they were trying to do. I don't know the story of Dr. Dolittle has been done since the 1920s. You know, it's a story that should have stayed in the 1920s. It's never had a good remake. It's never had a good movie made about it. Even the Robert Downey Jr. one got destroyed. Like, you know,
better off as an animation.
Yeah, they could have made an animated show out of it, no problem. But you know, nobody cares about can you talk to animals? Like, you don't.
I'd give anything to talk on a different level to the dog.
Yeah,
Anything.
I
I
don't.
don't care. Oh, if someone told me I could do that, could you imagine?
Yeah, but to the dog, but not to all animals. Like,
Oh no, I suppose
there's a lot of
Dr. Dog Little.
well, talk to dogs is one thing, but talk to every fucking animal is just a bit over the top. It's just there was just too many animals. I think there was too many animals in the film.
Yeah.
Like Eddie Murphy actually has a fear of live animals.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah,
Like,
Oh my
he
god.
like
So they had
hates live animals.
they had to shoot the animals in scenes and then layer them in on top of him, which is just like, why sign on to a movie where you're scared of live animals and not do scenes with the live animals? It's just like they could have put anybody else in the movie, but he had to go into it because he had 3 or 4 kids at this stage and he wanted to make movies for his kids, and that's basically why he did it.
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
Well done. Phil, was that 10 in your list?
Yeah.
Job. I didn't mind it. It was 7 on my list. I mean, again, it was a lot of Chris Rock being loud. So, which I don't mind in like small doses, like the way you just like have a dislike for people. Not that I dislike them, but just small doses is just too much for the guinea pig to be like,
He wasn't Pookie.
I'm cute, I'm furry, I make 500 babies a year. That was just enough. And I think as well for this movie, it's going to appeal to kids. But as Tom was saying, I mean, like, I don't know if I was a kid in this day and age and I saw this movie and I'd be afeared to go into the loo in case there's a 400-pound woman sat there eating a crab. Do you know? It was just a bit like, what? And then, but you know what? I'm sorry. The stand-up moment in this whole movie for me was, I am Kaiser Sose. The dog, amazing. I was like, yeah. I was like, well done, good boy. That really made the movie for me. It was grand. It was entertaining. It was fine. Tiger was cute. But like, it was watchable, but just a little less Chris Rock. But yeah, big shout out for the rats. I think they're hilarious because I think they portray what real life best friends are. They really are. So yeah, bigging up the rats, but 7 on my list.
We've all been there where we've had wind trap. We thought we were going to die.
Oh my God, there's nothing worse than a bad wind pain. Nothing worse. It's taking a sinister turn, this podcast.
It's very deep.
Hopefully it doesn't make a deep impact instead just makes a bit of noise, because our next film, number 3, is Deep Impact. Now I kind of feel like we should talk about the number 3 film and the number 1 film at the same time, because it's kind of 2 films in a long line of weird group think in Hollywood, where 2 very similar films come out at the same time. And I don't think you can talk about one without the other, really. So I'm going to talk about Armageddon first, because that's just the order I watched them in. And oh man, I actually don't have a lot to say about either of these films, to be honest. Armageddon, I'm not really a fan of Michael Bay. His films are generally just nauseating, headachy, and long. I would say if I had to describe Armageddon, it would be long, dumb, and boring. And Deep Impact, it would be less long, less dumb, just as boring. Like, I was so bored with both of these. Like, but Armageddon is kind of hilariously dumb, where it's like, I mean, obviously we've all heard the kind of famous kind of commentary by Ben Affleck, where it's like, why didn't you just teach the astronauts to drill? And he's like, shut up, Ben. And it's like, yeah, even if you hadn't said that, really, obviously, why? Like, why is this the way of going? Like, these drillers who are just total morons, like we see it, like running around shooting at someone with a shotgun in the first 5 minutes on an oil rig. Great idea, great character.
Where he's the best in his role. Do you know what I mean? He's the best in the field. Fuck off.
Yeah. It's like, he's like, I need my guys. Oh, Jesus Christ. But also it's like, it's so dumb. Like yeah, we're just gonna jump cars on asteroids and shit, and someone has an actual just regular gun in space. It's like that kind of dumb. I will give it a shout out for having one of the worst scenes I've seen in anything in a long time that I actually can't remember, like the animal crackers scene, where I was like, I can't believe, like, the writers are on strike at the moment. Like, whoever wrote this, I'm sorry, put him out of a job. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen, where he's doing this National Geographic, like, oh, we'll go north, we'll go south. And then there's another one, and he's doing another, and it's terrible. And then I actually, like, it got worse when she says, Liv Tyler says, you think anyone else is doing this now? I'm like, no, nobody is doing this now. Why would somebody else be doing this now? Why is anyone doing this in general? It is terrible. The only other scene that I had to got a big laugh out of me, like I laughed so hard I actually paused it, is when with an absolutely with a straight face when See Me goes, or Bruce Shemmy, whatever you want to call him, goes crazy, and William Fichtner goes, he's got space dementia.
Oh my
actually
god,
had
that's
to-
my nose.
I burst out laughing. I had to pause. I was like, oh my god, space dementia. Wow, well done. And then I was like, I have to Google this, make sure it's not a thing. Yeah, it's the made-up disease that's in a few things, including this. I'm like, this is so dumb. I think the ending was really obvious and really predictable. I didn't really care when anyone died. My last note was long, boring nonsense. The song is the best thing about the movie. Deep Impact, if I was to go on to talk about that one, I kind of liked it slightly more in that it was, more what would actually kind of happen. It felt slightly more scientific. It was still very boring. I talked about how, when Godzilla was on, I kind of got up, left the room, and came back. This was one where, I'm sure I left the room for 5-10 minutes and just didn't care enough to go back. It just was boring and monotonous. Didn't care for either of them. Deep Impact slightly has the edge for me. For me, it would be 10 Armageddon, 9 Deep Impact. I just wasn't impressed by either one of them. Again, I didn't expect much going into them, and I feel like I didn't this much not seeing them up until this point in my life, to be honest. I don't know any of these films. Am I going to any champion of Armageddon or Deep Impact?
I'm just going to say Armageddon is a film, and that's all I want to say about it.
That's a valid criticism. That's giving it a lot of praise now, Phil.
I would put it as number 9. It's even Dr. DoLittle was just worse for me. But Deep Impact felt like 3 different films. The start of it felt like this political thing, where there's a lot of scandals and then it just kind of went into space. And when they were in space, they weren't even wearing suits. Did you notice that? When they went up,
yeah.
How random.
Yeah, they weren't wearing any suits or anything until they went out of the ship. Deep Impact was better, but it wasn't very good either. That would be 8. But I don't really have much to say on them because they're both equally as bad. Although Armageddon does have a cool song, we'll give it that.
I think Michael Bay just tried to break into the room where I am. He was like, "What did they think about my film?" There'll be an explosion behind me in any minute now, so we better wrap this up quick enough.
Same for me. Armageddon was number 10. Deep Impact was number 7. Yeah, 7. I don't know. I don't know what to say about any of them. Armageddon, I don't remember when I watched. I'm sure I've seen it a few times, but I don't remember it being so bad. There's so much stuff.
Most people set me up to as well with that gun.
Well, why is there a gun in space in the first place?
I think that was the biggest indication of they were like, we need action, we need something to happen, and that was it. And it's also, by the way, Michael Bay gets shit for explosions. In this, it's it feels like they explode something and show it from another angle, and again and repeat, and it's somehow exploding again. This is taken to its. I feel like he didn't really think. He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have."
Didn't at all. There's.
I think. Do you know what? This is definitely what happened, right? Someone was like, "Michael Bay, we want you to direct a movie where an asteroid is going to destroy the Earth," and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to destroy the Earth." And then he signed on, and they were like, "By the way, you have to basically show the asteroid not destroying the Earth." And he was like, "Oh man, what am I going to do? Explosions now in space? Oh."
Yeah, explosions in space where there's no gravity. How are you supposed to shoot bullets at somebody in zero gravity? They're just going to fucking float off into space. Why is there a gun in space?
That's by the way, that's one of the smart people. That's not even one of the dumb drillers. That's one of the guys who's apparently want to be smart.
Most films you hear, people go and research to bring some specialists, and why didn't they bring on specialists from NASA? Maybe they did bring in specialists from NASA to do some of the scenes.
Bruce Willis.
Well, they had Bruce Willis.
Man.
And Billy Bob Thornton, who had a dodgy knee. But why you not bring somebody in who will tell them what's going to happen and what's not? This film, I'll tell you what, NASA shows this film during their management training program.
That's right.
New managers are given the task of trying to spot as many errors as possible. At least 168 have been found so far.
I feel like I could work for NASA because I was spotting errors all over the shop.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Narrative.
well, you could throw back one thing about it, Tom, is you can just say, like, oh, look, Ben Affleck and Michael Clark Duncan worked together before Daredevil.
That's true. Yeah, and then Daredevil is better, and I actually like Daredevil, but that was this was
Daredevil got a bad rap. This got a worse rap, but this deserved the bad rap.
that's
Deep
true.
Impact. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's Armageddon, just with a love story. The love story is on the ground, and one of them isn't in space, and that's pretty much. And a lot of Elijah Wood's fucking scenes were cut out of it. They didn't like it. Their test audiences didn't like all their scenes in it, so they cut a lot of their scenes out. So there was more of them in it.
You have to hand it to them that they managed to make 2 films about an asteroid going to destroy the Earth, and they made them both terrible and boring. Like, that's actually impressive.
Yeah.
Like, fair play. How did they manage that? Jesus Christ.
It's one of them things where, like, I wish the fucking asteroid would have just hit the fucking planet and we wouldn't have to worry about it.
That would have been a great twist.
Also, as well, like, how did they not realize that the kid was not a man? When they said 2 of them died.
What?
When they said 2 of them died in the car crash a year earlier. They were saying that it was 2 adult men when one of them was your man or the Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, do a thorough examination of the fucking crash scene. I can realize it.
Again, that was Kenny, the cameraman from Scream.
That scene was actually based on a true story. Like the asteroid, I think they called it XF11, that's going to hit the Earth at 6:30 p.m. It doesn't say Eastern, Western, or BST. October 26, 2028. This asteroid. This is like this man who died in the car crash. He discovered this asteroid that was supposed to hit the Earth at this date. That's where they got that scene from, like him, with the asteroid and going and dying in the car crash. So prepared for the 26th of October 2028 at 6:30 p.m. Western, Eastern, Australian time. We don't know what time it is, but that's when the Earth going to end at 61,000 kilometers per hour.
The only positive about both of these is that Deep Impact inspired a good episode of The Simpsons, and Armageddon inspired a good episode of Futurama. That's it. That's the only positive thing I can think of it. Ugh.
Nope.
Liz, did we get your thoughts? I've already forgotten if we heard from you at this point. I feel like it's just sucked the life out of me. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Batten down the hatches. No, I'm just joking. Do you know what now? Armageddon was 6 on my list. Reason being, because of Chris Rock. Basically, that's why it scored so high. Just being honest.
Chris Asteroid.
There you go. Thought that I might be able to tolerate it a bit more. But the biggest reason that it's high on my list is because there was such an uproar over the song and the soundtrack, and it made the movie look a million times better. The snippets they took for the music video than the actual movie was. They literally took, albeit few, the best bits and stills from the movie for the thing. That's the only reason it scores so high for me, because the song had such an impact. But there was just so many issues with it as well. Space dementia was, as soon as I heard it, Tom, I was like, hang on a second there now. This is the first time this has ever been mentioned. So you'd think you might lead us into it by maybe dropping a little nugget like that when they're doing their training, right? Regardless of whether it exists or not. Oh, he's got space dementia.
Hey, when you're up there, be careful about space dementia. Oh my God, he's got the space dementia.
This might be something you'll tell us before we go, right? Oh no, he's got space dementia. Did you not know that? It's
a wild thing to drop out of nowhere, like.
Right? It's just
absolutely crazy.
He's got to touch the flu. And considering the moon is about a quarter the size of the Earth, right? Ben Affleck managed to find them. Right? You know what I mean? I was just like, would you ever pull me other fucking leg? So that irked me as well slightly. Of course, shooting the bullets in space as well. I was like, would you ever stop? And the fact that they didn't know it wasn't going to work before they went, probably because they sent, oil rigs version of the Village People up for it. I was just like, this is fucking ridiculous. And some of the lines just, it's so hard to. You feel very discombobulated after watching it because it's just so bitty and blah. So, yeah, Armageddon was number 6 for me. Deep Impact was number 3 for me, right? Here we go, right? But there's a reason behind this and why it scored so high and why I found it easier and more enjoyable to watch than Deep Impact. I thought scientifically it was better, right? For sure. I'm a massive fan of aviation, of space travel. It's right up my street. Okay, so for me, I enjoy Deep Impact much more than I did with Armageddon. So I know that's probably surprising that was at 3 for me, but it held my attention and I did enjoy it. And I thought they've done a better job, to be honest, of, okay, so we have this list of people, if you're not on it, so you just need to go. I thought that was amazing. I was like, this is brilliant. And I won't lie, I'd be like, it's been a pleasure. Woo! And I'm gone, right? I just thought that was brilliant. I was not seeing that coming. I thought it was great. But then when I did see it, it reminded me of a movie whose name escapes me with, I want to say, Gerard Butler, when the emergency announcement comes up on the screen and only certain households get the emergency announcement. And again, it's the gridlocked traffic. I can't think of the movie, but do you know what I'm on about?
The only disaster movie he was in Greenland. It's not that one, is it? I haven't seen that one.
Is it Greenland?
Greenland's would be very good. I haven't seen it.
There we go. Maybe that's what it is. So yeah, there's shades of that in it.
Yeah.
So is it? Yeah, cool. Yeah.
The Greenland and this big fucking frozen fucking dome afterwards.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So there were shades of that. So a nod to that in it as well. But I did enjoy it again, just because it wasn't a bunch of oil riggers dancing around in space who just didn't take the whole thing seriously and just, why were they set in the first place? So yeah, it was 3 for me, but for, I suppose, not so much the movie side of it, the other side of it, because I have an interest in it. So I think they kind of lucked out with me, if I'm honest. So yeah.
Sounds like in between our 2 rock movies, hurtling towards the earth, we have Saving Private Ryan. So hopefully we'll come crashing back down to earth and find ourselves a bit of a better film than those 2. Saving Private Ryan, guys, what do we think about Saving Private Ryan?
Incredibly, because I said it before, I'm not a fan of war film, but this was just this is a masterpiece in storytelling. The opening scene is one of the best things I think I've seen.
Yeah,
I've never actually seen this before. It's the first time I ever watched this. Apparently, it was shot in Waterford or Wexford.
Yeah,
Wexford.
I'm going to put this as number 1. Because I wasn't expecting it to be anything anywhere near this. There was one point again, like I said, the last time I was with Dr. DoLittle, I watched it and I was like, oh, there's 45 minutes left. But I turned this on and I was about like 2 minutes later, it was like 50 minutes gone, and I was like, okay, this is phenomenal. Has also great few trivia questions for people as well if you want to catch people out. Because Ted Danson shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the face is popping up in this movie. Yeah. Every 2 minutes, I was like, do you know what that is? Do you know what that is?
That was just stood out to me because Ted Danson in a war film, it was just bizarre.
Yeah, especially
that one of my notes says I was not prepared for Ted Danson blowing everybody away. Everybody knows your name.
Exactly, yeah.
A phenomenal film, and I still don't know how it lost to Shakespeare in Love.
Insane.
Tragedy, that was.
Yeah, tragedy. Tom Hanks is just so good in it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Didn't win an Oscar for it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Spielberg could be Spielberg's best, but I don't know. Maybe.
So one of the best films ever made, I think. For myself, it's number 1 as well. Or it's number 1 if you look, Phil?
Yeah, number 1. Yeah.
Number 1 for me. Phenomenal film. Again, a film I watched probably millions of times. I've probably seen it 3 or 4 times in the cinema when it came out. I think we went back to see it a few times. That and Braveheart, that was one of the films. And a lot of it was, I was in the FCA when I was a late teenager, 17, 18 years old. And a lot of the extras in this film were actually Irish Army Reserve, FCA members. So like going back and watching it and, thinking, oh, that could have been me, or I could have been in Braveheart. I wasn't too young. I was obsessed with this film for years. Again, opening scene, Phil, was fucking intense opening scenes in any movie I've ever seen. It was so realistic. You felt like, you just felt for them, like, the fact that this really happened. And, from a lot of the people who watched, veterans who went to see it, they thanked them for making the film and retelling it, as close to as realistic as they could. Like, it was just so scary. Like you can imagine being on one of those
You could
fucking.
hear the bullets, like you could feel the bullets
Oh,
coming
like
up.
the bullet scene. The bullets actually were actually dubbed over. The bullets sounds on it were actually sound effects of real bullets being shot, and they just put them in over the top of the bullets. The scenes in it with the bullets in it, like. But the two, like some of the landing crafts, like that they used in the opening scene, were actually used in World War II. Like they got like 2 or 3 landing crafts, like, and you could just imagine being trapped inside one of them, and that just flaps open, and next thing you know, you're just getting fucking riddled. Like it was so fucking, it's just so scary, just freaky that this has actually happened. And then the story then just fucking expels, like they're fucking working their way through fucking France and into Germany and wherever they're going. Just
You kind of you feel the heartbreak when they get to the wrong guy as well.
yeah, it's just I
felt the heartbreak for him even more. Poor fucking Nathan Fillion, all your brothers are dead. And he's like,
I forgot he was in this. I was like, fucking hell, he's in this as well. Like,
yeah.
And it was like he was brilliant for that split second. Though my brother's dead, he can't be. He's still in middle school or wherever he said he wasn't. Brilliant, yeah. Paul Giamatti's in this film as well for that scene that he's in.
And Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
Even back then, Vin Diesel was obsessed with family. He's trying to save that kid, like.
And Diesel got paid $100,000 for this film, and he was unknown.
Yeah, not bad.
That's amazing. Saving Private Ryan for me literally was only edged out by the Truman Show, and it was like nitty bitty. It was very, very hard for which one, to see who was going to the top. But it was my number 2. But it sounds weird to say the best, but the best war movie I think probably ever made. You know what I mean? The best depiction of one. And I think, we forget that it was real, I think sometimes, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of September 11th, because we, to an extent, witnessed it. Do you know what I mean? It happened in our lifetime, and a lot of us saw it happening live on the TV, etc. And my fear is that people will forget about it, or will be unaware of it. And I think we're kind of in that boat now. From like, we're never going to forget about wars and things like that have preceded us, but for those who actually lived through it and saw it, there's obviously so much more to it. It's just crazy. Like the translator that was selected to go with them, who was bilingual. I mean, that's conscription at its finest. When you see, like, he's a boy. You know what I mean? Granted, a multilingual boy, but
annoying.
Christ almighty, I won't lie. That's what edged him off the number 1 spot for me. But it frustrated me so much. Like, but to see him cowering below the enemy, 2 foot below the enemy, praying to God that they don't see him, and never having shot a gun out of training, and that this is very, very real, and I'd imagine very close to the bone for a lot of, as you say, veterans who would have seen it. It's just so realistic, but without being excruciatingly gory. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I find the message can get lost, when there's a lot of gore and things like that. Maybe that's why I'm not such a fan of the old horrors and stuff like that. No, it's more the jump scares. But yeah, number 2 for me, but beautiful to watch, absolutely stunning, visually stunning.
Yeah,
I think actually it's funny that Phil mentioned kind of there, because this was rumors in my head where I was like, I remember a lot of people saying like we don't like war films, and I was like, but if they don't like this film, they definitely don't like war films. But yeah, this is also my number 1. Like, again, you could possibly point to the fact that that it maybe peaks at the start. That like that D-Day scene is absolutely fucking masterful for so many reasons. Like, amazing to watch, like the effects that went into it. Like, they got actual people that had prosthetic limbs where they're getting limbs blown off. It's horrifying in a way that feels kind of realistic. Even the way it's like shot, there's like, this was kind of one of the big ones for bringing in shaky cam to make it feel kind of naturalistic. And I think there was even like a shutter that they had rolling that made it more look like a more documentary feel as well. But like the lighting to it all being natural as well. Like, yeah, it was something that was very kind of period, I think, to make it look like that, and it kind of feels it like, and it's such a, like, again, it's such an impressive scene and it's such an engrossing scene, but it's very hard to strike that balance without like it being cool, especially with the Hollywood, you try to treat guns and soldiers in action, and it managed it, just a fucking amazing film. Like the way it's made is amazing. Like some of the moments in it are actually there's a few kind of darkly funny moments in there as well that kind of like kind of bring a little bit of levity when it's needed. But again, there's like the scenes that are just that really kind of hit you. We talked about the Nathan Fillion scene. And what I do like is that after that kind of big bombastic opening, I think the movie almost knows it can't top that, and it kind of feels like a smaller film then at times as well, where it's like they're going on their way to find this soldier. It kind of feels almost like a road trip film in a strange, unusual way. And it really kind of stresses that moment of like, you know, the kind of horrors of war and what people turn into, like when they find the person who killed their friend, and they're kind of unsure what to do with them, and then we see that person then later on. It's like there's so much I love about this film. I just feel like it's absolutely one of Spielberg's finest films. I mean, if you were actually one of the lads, you'd probably be pissed off. You went all the way and it was fucking Matt Damon. You're like, ah, for fuck's sake. But like, aside from that, it's like, you know, there's a lot to love about this. I do think if I had one kind of criticism, like the framing device is a little bit wonky of like the soldier with his family. Especially the ending monologue is very on the nose. I don't know if it was massively needed, but I think that was in there for like the actual veterans who were kind of seeing this, you know, kind of reflecting on their own memories maybe. There's another scene I love the scene where the medic is trying to talk through like what to do with him, and it's just like, this is really grim, and it's almost like he realizes it, so he's just like, put me out with some morphine, like let me go out nicely at least. Really grim. There's also this is inspired by a lot of the books by Stephen Ambrose. Spielberg would go on to make Band of Brothers. There's actually a reference to Easy Company in this, which is a nice nod as well if you've ever seen that show. But yeah, I mean, I think it's not only is it number one for me, I would say it's number one by quite a bit. Which is, again, this is only my second time seeing the film, because it's just quite a long film, like, you know. But yeah, I'm going to watch this a lot more because not only does it hold up, it like exceeded my expectations, which is very rare for a rewatchable film for me. So yeah, right up there, Saving Private Ryan. Kind of saved the day for me. Probably easily the best film in this top 10 for me. Again, delighted that it actually did so well, because sometimes films like these come out that have like these auteur directors and they don't necessarily do so good. And yeah, this was a massive hit, and deservedly so. Absolutely.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely.
And the fact that it, you know, it's based on, well, it's not, you know, it didn't happen the way it happened in the movie, but it's based on, you know, real people like the Nealon brothers. Like, you know, like sadly 2 of them died, and they thought the third one had died. He was left in a POW camp for like 18 months, and they thought he was already dead, and they sent the other brother home before they realized he was still alive. He escaped from him and finally got his way home. So, you know, fucking heartbreaking stuff, like, you know, that went on throughout this war, like, you know, needless fucking shit because of one fucking dickhead, like, realistically, one, you know, psychopath, you know, did this. You know, fucking how many people died in World War II? Like, fucking, I don't know, 1 million people or something died throughout the fucking war and beyond it, you know, from long-term effects and shit. Like, it's just crazy, like, that, you know, the acts of one fucking nut job can kill so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like,
somber notes ended on.
yeah, well, like,
My God.
Well, you're right, yeah.
While Liz is putting things together, we'll give you a word from our sponsors, Manscaped. Manscaped. There was no Manscaped during World War II or any wars, really. Like, you know, wouldn't be bringing any shavers with you. You're going to be
Ben
fully
escaped himself.
Frankenbeans. If you want to shave your Frankenbeans, go to manscaped.com. Use the code IWE20 at checkout. Get 20% off and free shipping worldwide, not in the space, just around the globe. If you need to shave those Frankenbeans.
There's something about hairy.
You're shaving your private Ryans. Manscaped.com. The new performance package contains the Lawnmower 4.0, the new Weed Whacker 2.0, which they kindly sent to us recently, which has been great for smelling the grass. Unfortunately, it doesn't prevent pollen or hay fever. You need the hairs in your nose to prevent that. That's what they're there for. But it's good for letting you breathe in and smelling the fresh cut grass. It's got the ball deodorant, which is going to be needed throughout these hot couple of weeks we've had in Ireland. We're in the middle of a heat wave, so put on that ball deodorant. Put it on your balls, put it on your pits. Nobody wants to smell your fucking sweaty cheese or whatever it is that you stink of. So again, lads, enjoy it. We thanks Manscaped for sponsoring the podcast. Go to manscaped.com. in checkout. Use the code IWE20, get 20% off, free global worldwide shipping. Thanks again to Manscaped for sponsoring the podcast.
Look after your lethal weapon.
Ooh.
I'm telling you, lads. Jesus Christ, shaving your privates, Ryan. I nearly fell off the fucking chair. I swear to God, that was hilarious. So good. Sorry, love.
I feel like we
Yeah,
should
we're
have definitely done something with DoLittle there.
Ah.
Seems so obvious in hindsight, but
Oh my God. Jesus.
Well, are the results in?
Lucy, you made me
No, they're not.
laugh.
They're not
I'm
in yet.
nearly there. I'm nearly there. I'm nearly
What
there.
was your favorite soundtrack from this list? What favorite song?
Armageddon.
Aerosmith.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's very
They
good.
had like
Okay,
they had
Armageddon,
3
yeah.
or 4 songs in the soundtrack overall. Like they had a few songs, and they covered a couple of songs for the film as well. But the Doctor Dolittle, if you look up, if you get a chance, Google the Doctor Dolittle soundtrack. It's like a fucking who's who of 90s hip hop.
yeah, I was listening to that. It's like it's a kind of a surprisingly banger soundtrack.
Lena, like out of nowhere, I forgot that she had a song for this film.
Yeah.
And All Saints covered Lady Marmalade in it. That was actually All Saints.
Yeah, I was wondering at first. I was like, "Who is that?" I was like, "Is this like some like like they didn't want to pay the rights to Lady Marmalade?" And then I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, there's James Horner scored the Deep Impact and Zorro. He was busy man, 1998.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
the
the
results are in.
Oh my God, very interesting list. I'm sure you have an out of grasp on what it could be already, but the top 10, according to us, how it should have been. To mind the list of what happened, this is how it should have gone. So we are rewriting history and rectifying past mistakes. Isn't that right? Because our word, I think, to be honest,
Quantum
should be
leap the
final.
shit out of it.
I love Quantum Leap. They didn't remake Quantum Leap, did they?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Why? No. It has no.
Anyway.
no. Sorry, but just no. Like his next leap will be the leap home. It has to be that dramatic ending in her voice. It can't be anything else. Some shit just doesn't need to be touched. So our top 10 is as follows. In number 10 spot, this definitely missed a few things. It was Armageddon. No surprises there. Heap of shit. In at number 9. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well. In at number 9, Talking to the Animals didn't really cut it because Dr. Dolittle careered into the number 9 spot. Next animal didn't fare too well. I'm not sure if we can call it an animal, but it makes 200 eggs in New York. So that was Godzilla. One of the many 38 remakes, adaptations, reboots, etc., etc. After that, Lethal Weapon 4, number 7. So even Jet Li couldn't save this. And I will not say any more because I think I've said enough about it already. Number 6, we all felt a deep impact when we saw this movie, and it did fare a little bit better than Armageddon. So yeah, definitely in at number 6 we have Deep Impact, followed by The Mask of Zorro. In at number 5 with a very, very authentic Anthony Hopkins in one of the lead roles. Amazing.
What's the code?
Antonio Hopkins.
You know what I mean? Exactly. El Capino, it's a bit like, hello. Number 4, our superb heroine had to be Mulan. And, I found out that she is the 3rd most popular Disney princess. There you go. Ooh. How random is that? The 3rd most popular, above Jasmine. There you go. Jasmine flying around the carpets. No way, Matt. We want a ninja queen. We do. Absolutely do. From number 4, we're coming up to number 3, Something About Mary. Of course, there was always something about Mary, and it affected all of us for comedy more than anything. It's just one of those at the time. How it would flow now, God knows, but definitely entertained a lot of us. In the 2nd spot, the penultimate decision, The Truman Show. The Truman Show came in at number 2. A very, very good call for number 2, which of course leads the top spot wide open for the one and only Saving Private Ryan. And to be fair, even though it was my number 2, absolutely the right call. Spectacular movie. What do you think of our list?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with it. I think the bad stuff ends towards the bottom. Zorro is number 5. I can have that. I feel like I really skewed the numbers on that one. I'm happy with that. I'm glad to come in there and fuck it up Zorro style. That's good with me. But yeah, no, that's a very, very solid list. I think top and bottom are very, very solid. So yeah, 1998 didn't have it so bad.
That was just the summer of 98.
Yeah, that's true.
Banger movies in 1998.
But I'm glad we done these ones. You know, it would be very, very easy to do a list of bangers, you know, that kind of a way. And just because then as well, you know, not everybody can be number one, but there was a real mix in here, you know, aside from like, you know, Armageddon and Deep Impact, there was quite a good mix in this, and then thrown in like a nice little Disney movie as well. Do you know, it's just very, very a really, really random list, but enjoyable.
Plenty of beans and plenty of Franks.
Mate, don't, I swear to God, I'll never get over Frank and beans and figure out what it was because I don't have them. You know. But yeah, so come here, what's coming up next?
Did you find my baseball?
I wanted to find his baseball. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd love for that character. We really did.
What is coming up next? June is Pride Month.
It is.
We are looking. I'm hoping somebody has a list ready to go. Somebody find the list. Didn't you send on a list to me? We're going to do the top 10 movies. Or the LGBT.
Doesn't have blue is the warmest color because we've seen that.
Well, on that.
Oh, fucking hell. Yeah. Right. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing the top 10
LGBT friendly
movies.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Have we got a list compiled?
There is a list online. We will have a look
for
a proper list there, and we'll let you know throughout the month of June what we'll be watching. Anybody who's watching or listening to it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go back, watch our old episodes, previous episodes. If there's anything you want us to, any list that you think we should go after, you know, break down, destroy, you know, maybe put some roses on, let us know in the comments, you know, tweet us, Facebook, wherever you want to find us. Let us know if you're watching, you know, reach out to us and we'll try and reach back. If you want to come on the show as well, if there's anybody watching that is interested in, you know, spending the month of June or any other month throughout the year and watching movies, TV shows, or anything in between, let us know if you want to come on, and we'll look you up and see if your knowledge is as good as Tom's or Phil's or even Liz's.
Well, my knowledge is not great. I just call it how I see it because you know what, I just very little filter going on here. But yeah, as Jerry said, come find us, check us out on all the social media. We are at IWE. No, we're not. We're at Irish Wrestling 8. Sorry, I have IWE on the brain today. And make sure also to check out our good friend in Deep Red Productions, Phil. Definitely go and check them out. He's always up to some fantastic things, and we're always hoping.
Still shooting that movie, Phil.
40 minutes edited so far.
40 minutes.
Amazing. Edited. We're always saying to Phil, do not forget us, Phil. Do you know when you're walking up the red carpet and they're like, Phil, who are you wearing? Like, please don't forget us because we'll just be so devastated. And we'll just be here doing
Phil films.
You know what I mean? This is it. It'll be like, do you remember that prick Phil? Yeah, here's his top 10. Yeah. They're all shit. Right? So if you forget those, you know. And of course, Pop Culture Podcast. Don't forget to check out Thomas. Thomas doing some amazing things as well. And also, if you have not watched Succession, what have you been doing? Tom, you are currently working on it. Tell us a little more.
Yeah, so I've been on page 180 pod with Jer, who used to do the Low Blows podcast. If you're a wrestling fan, you probably know him. So the last few weeks we've been talking Succession. I also should say I'm going to be back next week to talk the finale of Ted Lasso. But yeah, that's been a blast. On my own channel, we're coming into the summer movie season. I just put up my Guardians Galaxy review maybe last week. I might actually do my next video might be a review of Fast X and The Little Mermaid combined, because God knows there's so many similarities there. So that should be a bit of fun. Yeah, there's a load of stuff going on. Yeah, I'm going to do a lot more movie reviews next week because they're busy summer movie season and other stuff coming to the channel. So yeah, never a dull moment over there. So be sure to subscribe to Pop Cult Pod on YouTube.
Fantastic. So lots to keep you going, lads. Not just what you're watching at the moment as well. There's so much on the IWE channel, Irish Wrestling Entertainment channel, so much on Deep Red as well. Phil's an absolute star, and we were just waiting for him to walk down the red carpet. And Tom is never a dull moment in Tom's life. There was always something going on, and probably one of the most knowledgeable people that we are blessed to have on our podcast as well. So guys, thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed our list. Let us know down below in the comments. Did you like our list? Was it very, very different? Are we off the wall? Am I mad for not liking Lethal Weapon 4? Is Tom mad for being a huge fan of The Man in Black, not Johnny Cash. And of course,
Fuck you on the cell phones. They fuck you in the drive-thru.
no, stop it, because I can't. It's just too much. It just makes my head hurt. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, let us know down below, and of course subscribe. And thanks so much for entertaining us as we're entertaining you. And we hope to see you all again sometime soon.
I think there's only one way we could sign this off properly. Ready? Good morning, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon and evening, and good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.